like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free.
Hello everyone, and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. And for our third segment of today's show, we're going to be transitioning into the world of college football and taking a little bit of a look at the college football championship game and the players within this game. It's going to be a good one between Ohio State and Notre Dame, but I'm going to be discussing the 5 most important and impactful difference makers for both teams in this one as well. And this one took a lot of preparation because I think that when you look at both teams, obviously they were a little depleted in certain areas. Some of these players have dealt with a lot of adversity, a lot of injuries throughout their careers, whether it be with Notre Dame and Ohio State or whether after they transferred in. But ultimately, all 5 of these players, I think, are going to be the most impactful players in their position groups in the entirety of the game for their respective teams. So without further ado, even though a lot of you might not be as skeptical about this list, or you might just be as skeptical about this list as other lists, this is my personal list and who I believe will deliver for their teams come Monday night. Without further ado, let's jump right into my top 5 most impactful players of the college football championship. Starting off at number 5. This guy is perhaps the most incredible running back in the college football playoff just for his passion and determination. There were better running backs in the college football playoff just because of stats and things of that nature, but ultimately this guy has proven that passion and determination can get you far as well, and that is Mr. Jeremiah Love. He had perhaps 2 of the most impactful touchdowns of the entire college football playoff. The first being that 98-yard touchdown against Indiana, the first touchdown of the 12-team college football playoff era that immediately set the tone for how Notre Dame was going to play for the rest of the playoffs. A physical, ground and pound game on offense and complementary ground and pound defense. And Jeremiah Love exemplifies both, even though he only plays one position. And so I think that aspect of Jeremiah Love's play, combined with the touchdown he scored, the short yardage situation against Penn State to really amp up Notre Dame, get them on top, and ultimately take them over the top, is something that Ohio State's going to have to defend a lot more vigorously than, say, a team like Texas, whose running game weakened as the playoff went on, or even Tennessee, where Dylan Sampson did not look like himself in that game, or Jordan James, who again did not look like himself. Because Jeremiah Love, no matter the odds, don't tell it to him, because he's always going to come with a passion and determination like any other running back in the entirety of college football, really, because of how special I think he is. So look for him to be a very impactful player on the offensive side of the football for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Then at number 4, this guy obviously got a little bit dinged up in that semifinal game against Texas, but I do think out of all the linebackers on Ohio State's roster, he is the one that really is the engine of that linebacking core. And while Jack Sawyer, who has really made himself an Ohio State legend with his big plays and pivotal moments, has really stepped up, and Cody Simon, shout out to him, my fellow St. Peter's Prep brother, has been a tackling machine. I do feel like this guy really is the glue that holds them all together, the master communicator at the linebacker position for them, JT Tuimoloau. He's going to be an incredible NFL talent, JTT, and I feel like even though he may not make as big of plays as Sawyer and Simon do, he keeps them together. He's the cohesion that they need. And whether or not he has a big game really doesn't matter, because he impacts the game in so many different ways. He may not even have to prove it on the stat sheet. He allows guys like Sawyer and Simon to get home. He allows turnovers to be generated, right? And he's a big part of why they've gotten so far in terms of for where they were against Michigan to now. Jack Sawyer and Cody Simon will be pulling the strings, but JTT is the master puppeteer. But I feel like in this matchup, it will come down to, say, stopping a guy like Jeremiah Love, who we already talked about, and JTT might be bigger in that effort than he might have been in others throughout the college football playoff. So look for him to be one of the most impactful defensive players for Ohio State, even if Sawyer and Simon seem to be the stars at the linebacker position, even in this game. But then, and number 3, this is where it gets a little bit controversial, because this guy, yes, he's not the sexiest option of any quarterback in the college football playoff, but he is the most gritty, and he is the most determined, and he never takes no for an answer, and that's why Notre Dame are where they are right now. So whether you like it or not, Riley Leonard is going to be the 3rd most important player in this college football playoff championship. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, he has a lot of deficiencies for someone who has spent his career in college with Duke and playing well there and going over to Notre Dame and not looking as good. But if he wasn't gritty, if he wasn't determined, Notre Dame would not be where they stand, because they don't really care if Riley Leonard turns the ball over more than other quarterbacks. They don't care if Riley Leonard makes big mistakes. What they care about is that he compensates for them. What he care about is he goes back out on the field and comes out with the same aggression and determination as all the other players around him. What they care about is that he's an ultimate leader as well. And that's what have gotten them to this point. And so you can say that Riley Leonard might not be the best in terms of arm strength. He may say that he might be the best in terms of accuracy, but he is the best in terms of willing his team to victory and giving them the plays they need in terms of pulling games out. Look at his game against Georgia. That game was a very tense affair for large portions, but Riley Leonard made the timely plays that they needed, and ultimately they were able to win that one. He did it against Indiana as well. He may not, like I said, be the prettiest passer, and he may not have the best weapons, but he'll make the big play you need him to. Look at that pass to Jaden Greathouse, even though part of it was because of that Penn State defender. Look at his runs, his timely runs against Georgia. Look at his runs against Penn State in timely manner in the CFP semifinal. So, while he may not necessarily be the best player on the field, he's a very valuable player to what Notre Dame does offensively. And they're going to need him to put in a Herculean effort here against a very tough Ohio State defense. But I do think that if Notre Dame either keeps this close or ultimately pulls out the upset, he will be a huge reason as to why. Let's talk about the other quarterback in this game, my number 2 most important player in the college football playoff championship, Will Howard, another guy with an incredible journey. At Kansas State for many years, played very well there, but had never got over the mountaintop, never made it to the Big 12 championship game. Actually, he did, but I don't necessarily think that he would have competed in the 4-team college football playoff era had they won against TCU there. But ultimately, now at Ohio State, with a very talented roster, very talented offense, Will Howard has really stepped into his own. And while he may not be like Riley Leonard, a guy who a lot of NFL teams desire, and he may not be, say, a 10-year starter in the NFL, he still is a fantastic college football quarterback with a lot of fantastic weapons at his disposal. And I feel like what he did in that game against Texas was brilliant. He knew that they were going to take away Jeremiah Smith. And so he really was able to execute a perfect game plan that attacked the middle of the field and really allowed Ohio State to take control of that game. And in the critical moments, like I said, he may be prone to mistakes, but in that game against Texas, he made big decisions matter. He made that 4th and 2 matter. That extended that drive and ultimately was the difference in that game. So look for him to both positively and potentially negatively impact Ohio State. Positively, let's say Notre Dame follows Texas' blueprint and goes in his own coverage to protect against the big play to Jeremiah Smith. Will Howard can do the exact same thing he did against Texas, potentially make more mistakes. But whether or not it's positive or negative, Will Howard is the second most important player just because of how he controls the destiny of this offense. Because, yes, you have all the weapons around him, but you need a general. You need a quarterback. So, Will Howard really needs to be very impactful and make huge decisions in this one concerning his play. But, unfortunately, he is not the most important player in this game. It is one of his wide receivers we've already talked about, and who everyone knows to be one of the best wide receivers in all of college football, and the reason why Ohio State is here in the first place. Jeremiah Smith. This young man has truly elevated his game in the college football playoff to the point where he might just be not just the best true freshman receiver in college football, but the best receiver this season in all of college football. In the first 2 CFP games, 290 yards, 4 touchdowns, incredible stat line. Yes, he was locked up against Texas. But look at what Texas struggled to do in order to deal with him. They struggled to close in the middle of the field, and it opened up a lot of weapons like Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, G. Scott for Will Howard to throw to in that area of the field. So, either way, whether it's positively with his downfield threat or quote-unquote negatively, and even negatively he's still opening up space, Jeremiah Smith will have a huge impact on this game. Because let's say Notre Dame decides to stick to its identity, play man-to-man coverage. It's a very risky thing to do against a guy like Jeremiah Smith. But if they shut him down, you better hope that your receivers or that your linebackers or secondary, if you're Notre Dame, are able to keep up with Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, and other weapons in that offense as well. Because they've already given the blueprint of how they're going to attack you if you take away Jeremiah Smith. Okay, we're just going to utilize all our other fantastic weapons. So, Jeremiah Smith is the ultimate important player in this college football playoff championship just because of how he impacts the game completely for both Ohio State's offense and Notre Dame's defense. He completely alters your perception of how to defend him time in and time out, because Texas perhaps did the best job of anyone in the playoff, but Notre Dame isn't Texas, and they probably won't be. So look for Jeremiah Smith to have a lot of opportunities downfield, and ultimately for him to dominate this game, or for Notre Dame to change their ways, and for other weapons to dominate this game. So either way, Jeremiah Smith, I'm saying, is the number one most important, impactful player in the CFP Championship. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I made some very tough decisions here. I could have put in guys like Sawyer, guys like Cody Simon, but ultimately my list came about just because of how they could impact this game. But let me know what you think. Is coming up next. We transition to the world of basketball. Another big game out west. 2 teams heading in seemingly different directions. The OKC Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks. We'll be right back to talk about this game right after this short break.